Welcome to Jubilee TV number 15.
Come on.
Gonna kick it off.
Sadly, that message of emancipation is rejected. The Lord's Prayer commands us to forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. You know why debt forgiveness is so important? When we're in debt, we serve earthly gods instead of our Creator. Proverbs 22:7 states, "The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." Some easy information makes we are breaking the first commandment by serving earthly gods. Through usury, money monopoly, and debt, we become the unwilling hands and feet of Satan. Alternatively, the Jubilee shofar announces our emancipation from servitude.
Well, welcome everyone. My name is Wayne Walton, and this is Jubilee TV number 15. And we're going to be getting right into the presentation, starting with Henry Garman's presentation, the second version to the book of Habakkuk about a debtor's rebellion in our very short future. And my presentation will follow about the Bible story of the Battle of Jericho. Was that a genocide, or was it a Jubilee, and how does that even make any sense? So I'm gonna kick off our Jubilee TV mission video, and we'll be right back with the presentation. Yes, yes, indeed. Calling out to all area groups. We're going to make it happen right here, right now. And someone here to help us make it happen is Henry Garman and his second presentation on the book of Habakkuk. And I'm bringing Henry up. There you go, Henry.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. You hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Great, it's good.
How was your week, by the way?
Very stressful.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, it's no surprise. It's the whole mammon money, working for Federal Reserve notes. And then a company that I was involved with that were relying on PayPal. PayPal cut them off, which means I couldn't put any money in or out. It's just like with the way the economy is, now I'm in debt again, and I have people who owe me money, and they don't want to talk to me. Maybe they're embarrassed. I don't know what it is. I hate having to harass people for debts. And I hate being behind. It's like I was listening to that song. The song we played the last couple of weeks. So I'm putting on the iron shirt, going to chase Satan off of earth. Yep. And I found an album on YouTube. The artist has a whole album on there, and the first song is something like "Stepping Out of Babylon," and part of it goes. I can't remember the lyrics, but there's one part about where he's stepping forward, and then he says, "Oh, 2 steps back, 1 step forward."
Yeah.
You get that thing with this. We're all involved in this struggle for our daily bread.
Well, yeah. Well, here, check this out. Literally my electric got cut off today. So like that's for lack of payment, and it was the first time I've had that happen since I've been in college. I think maybe when the roommates, you normally have like 3-4 roommates. And there's one guy who's supposed to pay it, and that guy didn't pay it for some reason or other. Everybody pools their money, but this is totally on me because it's just so hard because you literally you see and it's so profound because like you realize that you're prostituting your mind and your body and your soul for Federal Reserve notes, and you literally are. That's what we're doing. We're prostituting ourselves. And we're knowledgeable of it, but we're still, in many ways, helpless to stop it.
Yeah, but I mean, those are like minor tribulations. I mean, it didn't get me down. I have a good laugh about it all at the same time, but still, it's not nice when you're either in debt or other people are in debt to you and they're running into problems. But I had a good week. We went to Colombia last week, and I was in Colombia visiting some friends, and I was just working too much, so I had to take like 3 and relax. And then that was Friday. I was in Colombia. Saturday, we're at a resort, a nice tourist spot here, about 40 miles. Just beautiful, hanging out with extended family, and had a nice barbecue and games, and so it's a mixed week.
Yep. I'm feeling you. So yeah. Babylon is slavery, and we're malfunctioning to varying degrees. But I'm interested to hear about your second presentation on the book of Habakkuk. So let's check it out.
Yeah. Okay. I'll get my screen sharing turned on here, if I can remember. Yeah, there's the green button. Okay. Share. Okay, here we go. Okay, so 2 weeks ago on number 13, I went over the first 2 chapters of the book of Habakkuk. And today first of all, I'm just going to do a short recap, a short review of what I covered last time. And I'm not going to go in as great detail. And Habakkuk was told to write a vision that God gave him in big letters on tablets. He was instructed to make the meaning clear so that all who read it and understand it would run with it, relaying the message to others. And the vision which God announces in the book of Habakkuk, specifically in chapter 2, foresees a sudden great awakening and worldwide debtors' revolt at an appointed time in a far distant future. So this was the vision that the prophet Habakkuk was commanded to write down. Woe to the proud who increases what is not his, who makes himself rich with loans. Suddenly your debtors will awaken. Then they will turn on you and bite you back. And this is in Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 5 to 7. So when it talks about biting you back, it's talking about the bite of usury. You know, Habakkuk chapter 2, God says, look at the proud one, the one who is amassing what is not his. And so Habakkuk lived around the same time as Jeremiah, just before the Babylonians invaded Jerusalem, before the Jews were taken to Babylon for 70 years. And the book of Habakkuk is a dialogue between the prophet and God. And Habakkuk complains about what he sees in his society, about violence, about oppression, about corrupt rich people controlling the courts and there not being any justice. And this situation is very familiar because it's continued on until today. And God told Habakkuk that he was going to show him something and he wouldn't believe. And I think that applies not only to Habakkuk in his time, but to our time. And I'll get into that in a little bit later. But Habakkuk wrote the vision just prior to Judah going into captivity in Babylon. And in Psalm 137, there's a psalm which has been put in a song into a psalm which has been put into a song by the rivers of Babylon. We wept, and you recall in Psalm 137 it says, "We were taken captive to Babylon, and our captors asked us to sing one of the songs of Zion." And so the song goes on, we wept. We could not sing a joyful song in a land of captivity. And it was revealed to Jeremiah and Daniel that the Jews would go into captivity in Babylon for 70 years, and then a remnant would return. But there's also the dream of King Nebuchadnezzar, of the statue with the head of gold, the breast of silver, the bronze and the iron, the feet of iron, which prophesied of a continuing enslavement to Babylon throughout history. And I believe that we are at the time now when we are coming out of the captivity to Babylon. Also, in the book of Daniel, it talked about judgment upon King Nebuchadnezzar. And this is an artistic rendition by William Blake. And in Habakkuk chapter 2, God says, look at the psychopath, look at the proud one who will fall, the one who will fail, the proud usurer. And King Nebuchadnezzar for a while went insane and lived as a wild beast. And so he experienced the judgment of God. Now the proud are arrogant, intoxicated, and greedy as death. I'm just going over a few of the things that God points out about the proud one in Habakkuk chapter 2. And plotting to ruin others, they have ruined their own economy. And the prophecy goes on to say that suddenly the debtors will awaken and bite him back. And so this is a word that God gave for an appointed time in a far distant future. And this is our time. This is a prophecy that even now is coming to pass. God says, while the unjust will fail, the just will live by my faith. And so God set forth his vision of what was going to happen to Babylon. Because you recall, Habakkuk was questioning God about the fate of Babylon. He said, okay, you're raising up Babylon, and then will this continue forever? Well, you know, he kept arguing with God and said, how long will the nations be crushed by the Babylonians? And God said, behold the vision, you won't believe it, but it will surely come to pass. The unjust usurer will fail, but the just shall live by my faith. And so we choose to have faith in God's vision, that the earth will be filled with the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. And at the end of chapter 2 of Habakkuk, the final verse says, God is in his holy temple. Let the earth be silent before him. So I encourage you to go and view episode number 13. I just covered the first 2 chapters just briefly right now. But that's the essence of the first part, about Judah going into captivity to Babylon, and then God's judgment on Babylon in a far distant future when the debt slaves arise, when they awaken and throw off their chains. And so now I want to move on to the final 3rd chapter of the book of Habakkuk, which is a hymn or a prayer. And a lot of people think this is just something just tacked on to the end of Habakkuk, but that's not the case. It's really an essential teaching, an essential prophecy and teaching of what our attitude should be. And Habakkuk reveals his character and the character of the overcomers. And he starts out saying a prayer of Habakkuk the prophet on Shigionoth. Now, Shigionoth means music. It means expressing with strong emotion, like dancing or set to victorious music. So Habakkuk is about to break out into music. And he starts out by saying, Lord, you know, I heard your speech and I was afraid because of the coming Babylonian captivity. And he said, you know, I was afraid because I saw the destruction of our people coming. And it's kind of like he saw the death sentence for Judah, for Jerusalem. And he prayed. He said, Lord, revive your work in the midst of the years. Like we need a revival. Like you got to bring us back from the dead, so to speak. He says, remember your mercy in this time of judgment. And so he was waiting for this evil to come, that God said Babylon was rising up and was going to take Judah into captivity. But we are at the other end. We are at the other end of the prophecy, the time in the far distant future when Habakkuk says, God came from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran. Now, Teman and Paran were 2 mountain peaks that defined the area of the Exodus. And so Habakkuk said, God comes as the light. He shined from Mount Paran, as in the days of old, as they left Egypt, and as they wandered in the wilderness, God led them. And he speaks of God's deliverance as light. And now let's take a break and think about light. Marshall McLuhan, a Canadian educator and communication theorist, coined the phrase, the medium is the message. And he said the original media is light itself. Genesis says that light is the very first thing that was created. So what is the message of light? Light communicates as it illuminates, for it exposes everything that is. In fact, the Bible says that God himself is light. The Bible says that God is light and in him is no darkness at all. And in Daniel 2:22, it's written, it is he who reveals the profound and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. Jesus said, this is judgment, that the light has come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, for their deeds were evil. Everyone who does evil hates the light and does not come to the light for fear that his deeds will be exposed. But he who practices the truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be manifested as having been wrought in God. So let's stop and think about it. Habakkuk uses the word Selah, which means stop and think about it. And he says, his splendor covers the heavens, and the earth is full of his praise. His radiance is like the sunlight. In other words, high noon in Dodge City is coming for Babylon and all the oppressors. And then he goes on to say, talks about the hand of the Lord being mighty, about the power. And he says he has rays flashing from his hand, and there was the hiding of his power. So God's hand signifies God directing events in history. So Habakkuk was confident that God is in control of history. He secretly orchestrates events. His shining forth refers to his presence that will confront people and change the course of their lives. So this is what it means when we talk about the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, of the earth being filled with the glory of the knowledge of the Lord. It's talking about God's light and power, God directing events. And then here's something that may seem strange to us, the way it's expressed in the Hebrew. Habakkuk goes on and says, before him goes pestilence, and plague comes after him. And he talks about God's feet. And he says that fever followed at his feet. Now, the foot of God refers to God being able to crush his enemies, God being all-powerful. And also refers to the Exodus. Then he goes on to say, God stood and measured the earth. So God stood with his people when they entered the promised land. He stood with Joshua. He gave Joshua victory, and he measured the earth. In other words, he parceled out the inheritance to his people. So this is talking about the Jubilee and entering into the promised land. Then Habakkuk goes on to say, the everlasting mountains were scattered. He looked and startled the nations. The perpetual hills bowed. In other words, hills and mountains are symbolic of kingdoms and principalities. And God will humble the forces that now we think are eternal. We think that, well, what power do we have against the Federal Reserve, against the usurers? Who are we? Well, God is going to do it. He says he's going to bring, as in Isaiah, in the song about every mountain shall be exalted and every hill brought low. It's talking about human equality. It's talking about God leveling the corrupt systems of the world. Habakkuk says, I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction. And Cushan refers to Cushan Rishathaim, who was the first king of Mesopotamia, who put the Hebrews into bondage after they went into the promised land. So God also says he saw the tents of Midian in distress. And Midians were early oppressors of Israel who put the Hebrews into debt bondage. They were in debt bondage for an 8-year period for worshiping Baal. And Midian was also the last enemy at the entrance to the promised land who seduced the people into idolatry. And they also consumed the wealth of the nation. They were likened to locusts, ravaging crops and stripping everything bare. The prophet Isaiah speaks about the light that breaks world enslavement and the rule of the oppressors as being a victory as in the days of Midian. And Midian fell in battle as a result of internal confusion. Isaiah prophesied that the people who walk in darkness will see a bright light. The light will shine on those who live in the land of death's shadow. You will break the yoke that burdens them, the bar that is across their shoulders, and the stick used by their oppressor, as in the days of Midian. For he says, for every soldier is confused. So here, when Habakkuk talks about in the days of Midian, he's talking about confusion coming upon Babylon. Now, the Hebrews often talked about nature in poetic ways, as if nature itself speaks, moves, and Habakkuk asked a question about God's wrath against the oppressor nations. He says, "What was your wrath against the sea?" And maybe this is part of of a chorus. Was your wrath against the sea? You know, he says, "Was your wrath against the rivers?" What was your wrath against? God's bow is ready. He says, "Your bow is made quite ready. Oaths were sworn over the arrows." So he talks about nature, the deep uttering its voice. It's like the collective unconscious, or the voice of the sea, the voice of the ocean, the voice of the stars, the voice of the planets, the voice of the moon and sun, standing in place as they view God's judgment coming upon Babylon. And so all of nature seems to be involved with the liberation from Babylon. And he goes on to say that the wicked who thought to devour the poor in secret will be destroyed by their own weapons, by their own arrows. So here we see part of God's plan. God brings confusion upon Babylon. God brings disorder, and God uses its own weapons against it. Those who live by the sword die by the sword, but not necessarily from an external enemy. Babylon perishes from within. And so God's judgment on Babylon is sure. And then Habakkuk goes on and says, "You walked through the sea with your horses. You trampled the sea with your horses, the surging of mighty waters." And I think this connects with the 4 horses in the book of Revelation, which is the judgments of God. So Habakkuk related the events of God's deliverance in the past, and he tied them. He spoke of the Exodus in the psalm. He recounted the Exodus. He recounted the Jubilee, the victories of God in the past against Midian and those who oppressed Israel with debt. And yet, for himself, he then went on to say, I tremble in fear at what is coming." And he had good reason to be afraid. You know, he said, "When I heard your words, my body trembled. My lips quivered at your voice. Rottenness entered my bones, and I trembled in myself, that I might rest in the day of trouble. When he comes up to the people, he will invade them with his troops." So he's talking about Babylon coming upon Judah, about the coming captivity. And so he was afraid. And yet we are at the other end. We are at the time of coming out of the captivity of Babylon. We are coming out. So we are now reliving the Exodus Jubilee. This is the time. And it's not for us to be afraid. Habakkuk goes on then to reveal the thoughts of his situation. And I believe this is a prophecy for our time because of the extreme economic pressures of Babylon. Habakkuk says, "Though the fig tree may not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, though the labor of the olive may fail, and the fields yield no food, though the flock may be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls." In other words, if he loses it all economically, he loses his crops, he loses his animals. Even if he has nothing, he says, "Yet I will still rejoice in my Creator." So he has a faith that sees beyond the trouble of his time. And this is a word for us as the overcomers. Yeah, I was talking about some of my frustrations this week. You know, there are whole nations that the Babylonian system has cut off You know, you look at this picture, you change that kid's skin to black, and that's a lot of Africa, with people starving, people having no access to livelihood, poor nations, poor peoples in debt, and no crops, and the whole raping of societies and the environment. And yet, God has promised he will pour out his Spirit upon all flesh, and that we will see the glory of God. So Habakkuk goes on and he says, Yahweh is my strength. He will make my feet like deer's feet, able to walk on the high hills. Treading upon the heights refers to a coming time of warfare, a time of spiritual warfare. And it echoes what David said in Psalm 18, when David spoke the exact same words. He said, God girds me with strength and makes my way perfect. He makes my feet like hinds' feet, or like deer's feet. He sets me securely upon my high places, and high places referring to government. He teaches my hands to war, so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me the shield of your salvation, and your right hand has held me up. Your gentleness and condescension has made me great. You have given plenty of room for my steps under me, that my feet will not slip. He says, you have girded me with strength for the battle. So Habakkuk talks about this in the context of economic crisis. God will give humanity a burst of energy. He will give us the direction, the burst of energy, and the confidence to overthrow Mystery Babylon when the time of its end has come. So it is not God giving us power from without. He himself is the power within us to overthrow injustice when the world economy stands on the verge of destruction. And so there is nothing to fear. We're entering a glorious time. The time of the overthrow of Babylon is the time of the glory of the Lord. It is the time of justice coming to the earth. And so Habakkuk concludes with a phrase that's usually put at the beginning of a psalm. He says, to the chief musician with my stringed instruments. In other words, he's getting ready to play. He's getting ready to sing songs. He's getting ready to proclaim the goodness of Yah. And that is the third chapter of the book of Habakkuk. That is Habakkuk's psalm. You know, he starts out in fear for what is coming. Then he speaks of God as the light, and God bringing light to the world and confusion to Babylon at the same time. And this echoes what is written in Jeremiah, where it says, gross darkness shall cover the people, but my light will rise upon you. Or maybe this is in Isaiah, or I think in both of them. And so this is the conclusion of Habakkuk. It's very, very optimistic. And we are entering the time of release from Babylon. And so that is the end of my, let's see. Okay, we're back. The final thoughts of Habakkuk. Habakkuk's psalm, Habakkuk's hymn and prayer.
Yeah, I liked it, Henry. I wanted to, number one, I wanted to commend, everybody I hope appreciates this teaching, because there's virtually nowhere where this gets taught. The book of Habakkuk is taught virtually nowhere, and it's about a debtor's rebellion. So right off the top, this is valuable information, and Brett provided a link off of Amazon where you can still get Henry's book titled Run with the Vision. Get that for the holidays. And you had included a little reference to by the rivers of Babylon, where we lay down, something along those lines. Anyway, I think Sublime covered that song, and I think it's profound about how many Rastafarians and reggae bands talk about Babylon, Whereas when I would go to church, they'd sing songs and I'd be nodding off, and they never talk about this system of slavery, because the church is so in bed with the money power, and it's so frustrating. They're so blind to it. I think it's profound that the Rastafarian bands, because they use holy anointing oil, they do talk about Babylon, and I think that's an interesting dichotomy. I don't know if you've noticed that in the music that you listen to. I haven't found really any other music that talks about Babylon.
No, I think it's totally Rastafarian, and they have a real understanding of the Babylon as an active force in the world. Whereas I think the problem is a lot of Christians think that, well, the Jews' bondage to Babylon ended after 70 years, and they don't look at the prophecy of Daniel as far as the continuing kingdoms. There was Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, and they were all one statue, which means they were basically one system. They were all an extension of Babylon. And so when the stone kingdom, when a stone came and crushes the image, it says all these kingdoms were destroyed simultaneously, which means basically they're all one. So, through Babylon, through Persia, through Greece, through Rome, through the Holy Roman Empire, through the money lenders from the Vatican and London, and the control of America by the banksters, it's all a continuation. I mean, Revelation talks about the little horn that came out of Rome, which is a continuation. It talks about the two beasts arising, the beast from the sea and the beast from the land, which is the money power. And so it's all one. It's all. I mean, even I was watching some videos this week about the pharaohs and how the families of the pharaohs are still, the descendants of the pharaohs. They were involved in banking, and they're still involved in banking today in Switzerland. They can trace their lineage back to the pharaohs who oppressed the Israelites. And so the kingdom of God is growing, and we will see the day when it's complete, when we have victory. And I believe we're entering into that now. But a lot of Christians deny that Babylon, they think that everything is future, that there's going to be this antichrist who's going to come and reinstitute Babylon, not recognizing that we've already been going through thousands of years of tribulation already. It's time for our deliverance, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, it's interesting. And they're like, how can they not see, in the last century, all of these wars, generally, it's involved Christians fighting Christians, and, the house of Judah, they're being persecuted, and they're being used by the synagogue of Satan. So Christians are being destroyed by the synagogue of Satan, and Jews are being destroyed by the synagogue of Satan, along with Muslims and atheists and everything. Mm-hmm. How can they not see, how many hundreds of millions of deaths must there be until you realize that we're in Babylon right now? We are in captivity. We're going through the tribulations right now. It's not future. And another thing I liked from your presentation was that this concept that all of nature is being warred upon, and nature is part of the creator, and the nature is resisting Babylon. Nature, yes. We are part of nature, and the animals are a part of nature. The trees, everything wants this to happen, because even the environment itself benefits from the Sabbath of the Jubilee. It's something that benefits everybody. I appreciated that aspect of it. It's important for environmentalists to realize that God loves the environment, because most Christians don't believe that, you kind of have the left is, they're atheists, so to speak, and the right is Christian, and the left is generally pro-environment, and the right is, theoretically against it. That's the way in Babylon they draw up the divide and conquer strategy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So any last comments before we switch over?
Well, I noticed in one verse in verse 13 of chapter 3 in Habakkuk, it says, "You went forth for the salvation of your people, for salvation with your anointed." In other words, with your Messiah. And so there's also a reference to the coming Messiah as part of the deliverance in this. And so when we're talking about warfare, and I know you're going to get into this in your presentation, you got to remember that in the days of Moses, it was the Bronze Age or the early Iron Age. A lot of violent empires just pillaging and raping and burning cities. And it was a real physical struggle. But the whole, with the coming of our Messiah, the landscape has changed to where our imprisonment is more internal and our salvation is spiritual, to overcome the deception. That the bondage is not so physical and obvious, but yet we're enslaved nevertheless. But the weapons of our warfare are different. And Jesus said, "Love your enemies and do good to those who persecute you." Now, he didn't say love those who are the dedicated enemies of God. He didn't say support the Satanists. He demonstrated, he opposed false religious teachings. But I better not go on. I won't give you any time for your presentation if I go down that line. That'll be another. I'm going to have to do a presentation on Jesus, Jubilee, and the early church, and the whole idea in New Testament times, in our times, in the church. What is Jesus' plan? How did he interpret Jubilee, and how does it function? That's another topic. Maybe that'll be my next one.
Yes, absolutely. I obviously I feel ticklish about contradicting the Bible, but I want to go there, and we'll do that in a minute. First of all, I wanted to show a video. I'm curious to see if you've seen this video. It's in 2012, we had an event in Breckenridge called the Rocky Mountain Peace, Unity, Freedom Festival. And we had Adam Kokesh and Sheriff Richard Mack and Gary Franchi and a lot of the biggest names in the Libertarian Party, or the Libertarian Movement, anarchists, come do an event. And we took them aside to create this song, a rewording of the Beatles song, Jubilee Let It Be. So here we go. So, Henry, had you seen that video before?
Yeah, I have. I like that final phrase, something like musical plan to save the world or something.
And that was kind of tying in with one of the last things that you're saying from the book of Habakkuk, where like Ready the musician, and
Yes.
Because what's interesting about this, I was posting in the chat. Um, like for instance, Brett Jones has designed a bunch of different our money systems, and he's out of debt. And just imagine right now we had that 144,000 people that were down to do it, just like generally everybody that listens to the show, and certainly Henry and myself, and all of those people. Those are very big names. Those are some of the biggest names in the Libertarian Party and in the Green Party. That was the presidential nominee and the vice presidential nominee for the Green Party during the last election cycle, and the presidential nominee of the Green Party, Cynthia McKinney. So we have the right, the Libertarians are down, the Greens are down. This will really go quickly, and it will literally be as simple. It'll be like a song. Jubilee is a song. It's a way of thinking. It's not a conflict. It's not a fight. And that's and I think that message of our emancipation is eternal. I think, and that's where I'm different with what Henry's saying is basically, obviously you read the old history. It's the Old Testament is very violent, and then you get in the New Testament, and then it's different, and it's very peaceful. Jesus has turned the other cheek, and I just I don't know. I think maybe the devil had his hand in the devil wants us to portray us as being violent, and I resist that belief. I think human beings are naturally peaceful, and I want to play Officer of Peace because it's going to tie in with my presentation. And Officer of Peace really could have been named the Second Battle of Jericho. And that's where the reason why I want to get into my presentation is called Jericho, the Battle of Jericho, Genocide or Jubilee. I believe it was a Jubilee, and I want to provide evidence as to why it was. And we'll do that. And before doing that, let's look at Officer of Peace. This is a 4-minute music video that really describes the entire revolution that humanity needs to have. And it's a song, just like Henry was saying from the book of Habakkuk. If you understand this very simple song, and you can get down with this way that we don't have to fight the bankers. Actually, we don't have to fight the bankers. We don't have to fight the police and the military. We can just have a Jubilee. We can just issue our own money and pay the enforcers with it. So here we go with the second battle. I am the officer of peace. Yeah, yeah. So I just, it's amazing how that creation of that video all came together. God's hand was there because we just barely had enough people to make all that happen, and it just all fell into place, and on a low budget, it all worked out. And that was Sherry Honkala. That was the Jubilee sheriff in that video. She was the vice presidential nominee of the Green Party last election cycle. So, you know, that's a prominent name. You know, this is a real thing that's going to happen. You know, this consciousness is going to happen. It's not just these books. This is the living God who's going to impose his will through his children on Babylon. When, you know, everybody thinks, you know, it's going to be World War III, it's going to be another, you know, a currency collapse and all that stuff, where everybody's peddling fear, like Alex Jones or Jonathan Cahn or whatever, whether it's on the left or the right, they're peddling fear. And if they're selling something that, you know, it's like a Bernie Madoff, that things can be better. Bernie Madoff doesn't have anything on the kingdom of heaven. Bernie Madoff isn't promising debt forgiveness. He's not promising self-issued currency, working in the vocation of your passion. Bernie Madoff isn't close to what God wants for us. And it's so amazing to me that, you know, you make a video like Officer of Peace and it hasn't even a 1,000 views yet. And like a Miley Cyrus or something, like she'll slap a flea off her shoulder and it'll get 100,000 views. And that's just, it's amazing how Babylon has gotten people to love the things that destroy them and hate the things that are designed to emancipate them. So everything is opposite, you know, in so many ways. So be that as it may, I wish to, Henry, did you have any comments about that Officer of Peace video? What do you think?
I love that video. I really do. And yeah, it's that is the concept. You know, a lot of lawyers are waking up. Lawyers and judges are starting to challenge the whole corporate system in the U.S. And you know, they're speaking. Well, they just speak legalese. You know, they're working through the courts, but then a video like this could be the spark that enables them to connect. You know, could be the wedge. So we got to make this one go viral. I'm going to see what I can do. We got to see what we can do, you know.
Yeah, because it's so simple, and it's you're basically validating and loving. It's God's revolution. God's revolution is, I love all of you. I don't want for you to fight. And if you follow my ways, this is the only way out. The people have to issue their own money. You have to hire the enforcers, because we don't want to fight the enforcers. But it doesn't, right now, the bankers are engineering war between the former military and versus the police, or just the common man and the police. And you can just see it all being engineered out. Every time there's a shooting, the response is, you know, the government loving people, they say we got to control guns, and the government hating people, they buy guns. And the whole thing is, it's scripted out that there's never a resolution. There's just more guns fighting the people that hate the guns. So it's the gun lovers, and then there's no solution to solving the whole thing other than this one thing. So that is what my presentation's about. So let me gear that up and get my screen shared. Henry, if you could, in a minute, I'll have you mute. I want to make sure that you can see my presentation first. Make sure that I'm on the first screen. Yes, I am. Okay, share. Okay, I'm presenting to everyone. I hope it says Battle of Jericho, genocide or Jubilee. Can you see that? Okay. All right, that is okay. Battle of Jericho, genocide or Jubilee? What was it? So my belief is that God and the adversary are eternal. That means that there's nothing new under the sun, meaning the struggle today is the same as it was during Egypt at the Battle of Jericho and during Jesus's walk and today. It's the struggle is always the same thing. The names change, but the law, the creator, the devil, and man's passions are the same. So this is an overall belief system. And that means that there exists only creditors and debtors on planet Earth. The same during the Battle of Jericho, the same during Egypt. And number one, all other divisions of humanity are financed by the creditors, meaning nations and corporations and every form of division that you can think of that in Babylon, it's manufactured by Babylon. That we're, communists or capitalists or whatever. All of the isms. Number two, the 1% creditors finance a perpetual divide and conquer war on the debtors. Usury, debt, theft through color of law, false flags, and genocide are all the tools of the creditors. Number three, Bible law to protect us. The only way that we can be free from that war is the use of Bible law, which forbids usury. It requires Jubilee debt forgivenesses, land repatriation of as God's law to protect humanity from satanic psychopathic creditors. Number four, the Ark of the Covenant is the container of God's law, which is unbeaten in spiritual warfare against the creditors. Number five, Jesus was the perfect example of how to enforce God's law against the creditors to emancipate his children. Number six, his followers, us, we Israelites, are to be his hands and feet and cleanse his temple and build his kingdom on earth. Number seven, our emancipated, fully empowered, determined, and focused currency issuing and jubilant souls represent his second coming, his glory, and the blessing to all the nations. We are the Israelites. God says that we are his people, we are his chosen, and we are his chosen because we will follow his laws. So the big hurdle with this is I'm rewriting the Bible, and I'm not doing that out of a form of rebellion. I just think that the Bible was rewritten by who? That the father of lies rewrote it. And it's so important to recognize this. Think of, literally, I look into my child and I sing to him and he smiles. And I literally feel like that's God smiling, because it's like he's the kingdom of heaven. He hasn't been corrupted by Babylon. And he just smiles and it just fills my world with joy. Think of the psychopaths who hate him, who want to fill him with inoculations, who want to poison him with fluoride and chlorine and poison him in every way that they can to twist him from the truth. Like, we are fighting the most ruthless and hateful power ever conceived by evil minds. That's our adversary. And that adversary writes the history. So it really comes down to, is it possible that the devil got a hold of the Bible a long time ago and included some lies in there so that we would believe that God wants us to kill, that God gives us permission to kill? And there's in even the book of Joshua describes, in Joshua 9:1, it describes the deceit of the Gibeonites. And this is a group of people who infiltrated the Israelites as and those people would later become the scribes and the Pharisees. So it really comes down to, the scribes are the ones that wrote these books. And the scribes, in order to create books, you need money. And typically the people that have the money, they're the very people who are corrupting the system then as today. So it just comes down to, when did the corruption happen? So this presentation is based upon a book that I wrote called Operation Jericho. It's an audio book. It's a physical book as well. Anyway, the caption is Operation Jericho. It's a nonviolent military campaign to beat the banksters and emancipate debt slaves through Jubilee monetary reform in less than 1 year. I wanted to make one sentence describing Operation Jericho as I perceive it, because it's basically it's the Officer of Peace music video, but we just replicate it across counties and every block in the United States, every bank, every police office, every sheriff's office, and we just go around and we keep doing it over and over and over again till everybody's singing Jubilee, Let It Be, or the Officer of Peace song. So that's the basis. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to show the promo video to Operation Jericho. That's the hook. Hope you stay around. Now, from 2 Chronicles 7:14, God says something very unique here. He goes, if my people seek my face. So I'm going to read this. It goes, if my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and heal their land. Right? That's God's promise. Seek my face. Well, when I seek God's face, I feel the creator, not the destroyer. And God wants us to know him and to hear the word, not just read the words. He wants us to hear the word, to feel him, when he's calling me to serve him, he calls me never to do harm to anyone. He calls me to inspire people, to create things, to teach people his ways and his good news. That's the good news. The good news is we don't have to kill anybody. Thank God I don't want to kill anybody. And the biggest thing in my life, this is my personal testimony, the biggest thing in my life that brought me away from that psychopathic belief of us versus them, because I'm a former Marine, I was very much programmed into that from, I would say, from 6 years on, and had it all the way up until I was 40. I believed in fighting, and killing. Well, the cannabis of Exodus is what brought me to be saved by Jesus. It brought me into a direct knowledge and revelation with my Creator. So the purpose of this presentation is, number one, I want to describe read the official story of the Battle of Jericho. Number two, I want to demonstrate the devil had means, motive, and opportunity to corrupt the Jericho story. And then finally, and most importantly, is in the future. Now, this isn't just a mindless lesson and a debate that just goes on forever. We need to prepare for a future non-violent Battle of Jericho. So the official story of the Battle of Jericho. So there it is. You can see the Levite priests on the left, and they've got the ram's horn. There's 12 of them, by the way. 12 Levite priests with 12 ram's horns, and you have Jericho there. And Jericho, he's got his sword, he's got some armor on, got a helmet and a spear, because it's a physical description. So here are the W's of Jericho. Who was at the Battle of Jericho? It was the Israelites versus the Canaanites. What? It was the first battle of the conquest of the Promised Land. When did it happen? It happened after the Exodus and after the law of Moses was revealed, roughly 1400 years prior to Jesus. Where did this happen? It was in Palestine, otherwise known as the state of Israel, created by Rothschild the usurer. And how did of Jericho happen? It was violent. It was physical. It was a conflict. So just dipping back for a second, we're going to go into the law of Moses. Law of Moses says plainly, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet. That's important. So, and it's in Exodus 20:13, King James Version, thou shalt not kill, period. Right? So there's this idea of primacy. Primacy, it means that the first time that something comes up in the Bible, there's a rule, there's a commandment. Well, that stands, period. That is the punctuated, thus saith the Lord. And if there's something to contradict that later on, be a little skeptical, look into it. So again, another portion of the law of Moses is the Jubilee law from Leviticus 25, 8 through 10. Count yourselves 7 years of 7 Sabbaths, 7 times 7 years. This set of 7 weeks of years total 49 years. I'm sorry, I missaid that. This set of 7 weeks of years total 49 years for you. Sound a horn on the 10th day of the 7th month of this 50th year. Likewise, on the Day of Atonement, sound the horn throughout your land. Set aside and consecrate the 50th year to declare liberty throughout the land for all of its inhabitants. That's on the Liberty Bell, by the way. It is to be a year of Jubilee for you. Every person is to return to his land that he has inherited. So, and that's talking about 7 priests, 7 ram's horns. So there's this repetition here. So let's compare that to Joshua 6, 7 through 20, which is a recounting of the Battle of Jericho. This is kind of long, but stay with me because it's going to sound really similar to the law of Jubilee. So let's start off. He told the army, quote, go out and encircle the city. I have the armed men march out in front of the ark of the Lord. End quote. And so as Joshua had commanded, 7 of the priests went forward carrying 7 trumpets made of ram's horns in the Lord's presence, blowing the trumpets while the ark of the covenant of the Lord followed them. Armed men preceded the priests who were blowing the trumpets, and a rear guard followed the ark while the trumpets continued to blow. 10. Joshua issued orders to the army. You are not to shout or even let your voice be heard. Don't utter a word until I tell you to shout. Then shout. So the ark of the Lord was taken once around the city. Then they went back to the camp and spent the night there. That was the end of the first day. Joshua got up early the next morning, and the priests picked up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests who carried the 7 trumpets made of ram's horns preceded the ark of the Lord, blowing their trumpets constantly. The armed men preceded them, and the rear guard followed the ark of the Lord, while the trumpets continued to blow. On the second day, they marched around the city once more and went back to camp. They did this for 6 days. They rose up early at dawn on the 7th day and marched around the city 7 times, just as they had done before, except on that day, they only marched around the city 7 times. 16. As they completed the 7th time, after the police have blown the trumpets, Joshua told the army, shout, because the Lord has given you the city. The city, along with everything in it, has been turned over to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the prostitute and everyone who is with her in her house may live, because she hid the scouts we sent. Now, as for you, everything has been turned over for her destruction. Don't covet or take any of those things. Otherwise, you'll make the camp of Israel itself an object worthy of destruction and bring trouble into it. But everything made of silver and gold, vessels made of bronze and iron, are set apart for the Lord. They go into the treasury of the Lord. Final verse. So the army shouted, and the trumpets were blown again. As soon as the army heard the sound of the trumpets, they loudly shouted, and the wall collapsed. The army charged straight ahead into the city and captured it. They turned over everyone into the city for destruction and executed them, including both men and women, young and old, and oxen and sheep and donkey. That's it. Here are the casualties, a recap. Every living thing inside Jericho was killed. That means roughly there's estimates based upon the ruins in Jericho. It's like 300 to 3,000 people. That was women, children, and animals. And by the way, I'm serving Babylon right now. One could make the case right now that this is Babylon. We're in Babylon. I have a newborn child, and one could make the case that somewhere right now that Israelites are being told by God that to come here and kill me and my son and my wife, because we are serving the devil right now. We are serving the devil. I admit it, because we're using the devil's money. Well, I don't think that's what God wants for us at any time. So anyway, finally, everyone was killed except the prostitute, who was sinful, and her family and friends. So that's the casualty count. And this was a victory for the Israelites, I agree. There were no Israelite deaths. The walls of Jericho were dissolved. There was no fighting. There wasn't a physical fight that challenged the Israelites. There was just this unusual 7-by-7 ceremony preceding the division, or the walls dissolving. So the Jericho steps, if you look at the image on the left, you can see the dude with the ram's horn and the Ark of the Covenant, and the dudes with the spears. They went around one time on the first day. They did that every day for 6 continuous days, and then the 7th day they did it 7 times. Dissolved. So on the right, so you have 7 Levite priests, 7 ram's horns, 7 days, 7 laps. So reviewing the law of Leviticus 25, that was, they say, it's 7 times 7 years. I don't know. I think there's a connection there. I feel, the Ark of the Covenant was all part of the Jubilee law. And I don't know, something smells. There's too many similarities. So number 2, this is section 2, the means, motive, and opportunity. Those means, motive, and opportunity, those are the ingredients of a crime. And I think there is a crime. I think the crime was, did the devil rewrite the Jericho story? And does that mean, did the devil have means to rewrite history? Taking this apart, from some people are like, just the Bible is the authentic word of God. There are some people that believe like that. And I think, the devil is the one that owns the print shops. The devil has the one that has the ability to print any book and distribute it. And so anyway, did the devil have the means to rewrite history? Did the devil have the motive to rewrite history? Did the devil have the opportunity to rewrite history? So let's take those, just the means and the opportunity. Well, the devil has had unlimited funding for the last 3,500 years. The devil, at least 3,500 years. As I said before, from Joshua, I think it was 9:1, and the deceit of the Gibeonites, from at least that point, the Israelites had been infiltrated. And this truth, I think, reigns supreme, is that the victors write the history. And God wants us to be, we're sheep, but he wants us to be wise as serpents. Well, how wise is the serpent? The usurers, right? The usurers are the usurers know the story of the Bible too, and they want to corrupt that story so that we don't ever have a way out, so that we are always perpetually trapped in Babylon. So now, why does the devil hate Israel so much? Why would the devil want to destroy the history of Israel? Well, the Israelites are the only people with the law of Moses which defeats the bankers. Only the Israelites have this law. Everybody else can use it, obviously, but that it was given to the Israelites. Only the Israelites have been successful in defeating the banksters at Exodus. The Exodus was a Jubilee. It was the only group of people that have a story that's front and center about, the Passover. That is part of our feast. It's a feast of the Lord. Our holiday is about our Passover lamb redeeming us at the battle. That you can say that's the battle of Exodus. That was a battle where no Israelites died. The Israelites are the only people who have the Ark of the Covenant. The Israelites are the only people who have Bibles in modern courthouses. Think about that. This story that we're talking about, when you go, when we want to challenge this system, they're going to make me put a hand on the Bible. I can't wait to do this. Like, I'm excited to do this. I want to challenge them on that they can tell me not to have cannabis. I want to challenge them because I wrote a book about it. I want to challenge them about that I owe debts that are based upon usury. Like, I want to have this theater. I want to make this the biggest courtroom theater that has ever happened, The Israelites are the only people who have a Messiah who have whipped the banksters. That's our Messiah, Jesus. He whipped the bankers, man. How badass is he, right? So we Israelites, we are the only people as a Messiah who rose from the dead, and he went to the crucifixion on purpose. He could have left them. He could have, challenged them and defeated himself, but he wants his people to be inspired by him, to not be afraid of death, to be willing to take up the cross. This is Jah, baby, So the devil hates Israelites. So on the right, you have a bullseye. The devil's entire focus is on the Israelites and the law of Moses. We are front and center. All of the devil's energy is focused on us. The devil wants to steal the Israelites' identity. They want to steal our history. They want to corrupt our law. They want our Torah forgotten. They crucified our Messiah, right? These people hate us, So think about how, the kingdom of heaven is our destiny. This is where we are going. The 144K is going northward to the top. And we're going there by becoming the living Torah the same way that our Messiah did. Well, the way that the devil twists this is, if you look on the left, you have the house of Judah being led astray by the house of Rothschild, basically, with the state of Israel. That's how the identity theft has happened. That's what this is all about. The identity theft of the house of Judah has been stolen, and the house of Israel's identity is being led by Judas goats and false Christians like, you think of all these false Christians like Tom Woods, like, oh my gosh, Ron Paul, like Alex Jones. You know what I mean? There's a whole, I just named some from the capitalist right. There's a whole bunch of them on the left too, like the Pope. The Pope is, generally lefty. Well, communism and capitalism are both of the house of Rothschild. So identity theft by the synagogue of Satan. And the point is that everything the devil's doing, the righteous is on the the left, sorry. What is righteous is on the left, and that's what's written in the Bible. The Israelites, the menorah is a good thing. The loving the law of Moses and the prophets, the Torah, the tribes of Judah, the line of the tribe of Judah. Well, think of how that has been turned profane by the state of Israel. The identity theft of who the Israelites are with the Talmud and tradition, and how they have created a system that, think of everything that Hollywood does to corrupt the name of the Jews in the house of Judah. They're doing all of this in the name of Jews and creating a thing that's opposite, where it's filled with violence, and it's filled, like when you watch TV, it's filled with violence, it's filled with everything that's all of the laws against sexual morality. Hollywood does the exact opposite of it. And it does it in the name of the house of Judah. It's a deceit. The devil hates the Israelites. And the way the devil condemns any people, they're psychopaths. So it blames them as being violent, hateful, lustful, decadent, and greedy. It condemns the Old Testament as being genocidal and it as a myth, that it didn't happen, or it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. So as present day evidence of this tyranny, here's the evidence. There are 0 Torah teachers on Babylonian TV. There are 0 movies. You know, when they create a movie about Israel, they might have, like, they recently had a story about the Exodus, but they never taught the Torah. They'll have movies like Saving Christmas with Kirk Cameron, because Christmas is made of Babylon. You know, it's created by Babylon, it's created by man. Or they'll have the Left Behind series with Nick Cage. Well, that's what Babylon finances. They never talk about the Torah. They always talk about false solutions, and they wrap it in Christianity as a form of identity theft. So, and what happens is, because so many, you know, the image on the right, it's showing the state of Israel. State of Israel is doing evil things just like Hitler did. Just like the people in Israel are condoning, or Jews worldwide and lots of Christians are condoning the murder and genocide of Palestinians right now. And because of this, bullet point number 1, many hate Israelites because of the Rothschild state of Israel. It creates a Hegelian dialect today that between Zionist Jews versus anti-Zionist Jews. Well, let's say you're against the state of Israel and you're a Jew, but you still follow the Talmud. Well, you're still following the devil. You know, they create these Hegelian debates all over the place. Finally, the persecution of the Palestinians is a crime against humanity. And it's really, in many ways, it's similar to what Jericho or Joshua did in Jericho, right? So it's really important. Here's a great quote that I can't repeat enough. It's from Titus 1:14. And when the Bible's talking about the Jews, it's not talking about the common Jew. It's talking about the moneylenders, scribes, and Pharisees, and the people who support them. So it goes, not giving heed to Jewish fables and commandments of men that turn us from the truth. And that's by Saul, who reformed himself and turned into Paul. He was a Jew who was crucifying the Israelites, who we call Christians now. So these fables, they're false flags, are myths to trick us from obeying the law of Moses. That's the whole point of it. And going back, they're tricks, these fables. Tricks to get us to obey commandments of men. Well, commandments of God is thou shalt not kill. So Jewish fables, let's analyze them. The Jewish fables, number 1, they portray the innocent victims as violent. Number 2, they portray the violent heroes as victims. so they're portraying violent people as being heroes, or sometimes they'll portray them as victims. So it changes. Number three, these are the tricks. These are the way the Jewish fables get promoted. They use Hollywood, corporate media, theater, storytelling, false flags, crisis actors, patsies, and our passions against all humanity. So here's a good question. How many people died at the Gulf of Tonkin incident? Right? So that going back in their history, that was in August the 2nd, 1964, shortly after Kennedy was assassinated and Johnson was the president. So the official story was that two American destroyers were attacked by 3 North Vietnamese PT boats. Well, that Gulf of Tonkin incident led to about 2 million people being killed. Well, the Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara, said in a documentary called The Fog of War, well, that didn't happen. So nobody died. It was a Jewish fable that got promoted on it got promoted with Jewish-controlled money. It's the synagogue of Satan, really, behind this. I don't mean to blame the common Jew. It's the synagogue of Satan who are masquerading as Jews. And it was promoted in their media. It's controlled, financed through their banks, and promoted in their staged elections. And that whole war killed 2 million people all over a phony event. Again, how many people died at Sandy Hook? Well, if you go into the FBI's own website, you can Google this. Like I actually did this for my own personal. I want to do my research. You can go into the 2012 crime statistics and investigate in Newtown, Connecticut, to see how many people were killed. 0 in Newtown. Well, this is all part of a gun grab agenda. Also, how many people died at the Boston Marathon bombing? Right? You see the dude on the right. It sounds like a lot of the best evidence is showing right now that that guy's former military that lost his legs in a banker-financed war. So they have crisis actors and staged events. All of these things are part of the satanic agenda. And, well, that satanic agenda has been around for as long, since the fall, at least. Since the fall. Going all the way back into the book of Genesis and into paradise. It's the fall of man. Well, when Jesus tells us to be wise as serpents, we should expect that our history is being corrupted. So applying that, what if nobody died at Jericho? Well, Mosaic law could still have been upheld through a Jubilee. What if, what I'm saying is that what if the Battle of Jericho is actually a Jubilee? Well, Mosaic law would be upheld. The stone walls of division would have dissolved, right? Those walls were dissolved. Well, who creates the stone walls in our hearts? The bankers do. Who's divided and conquered humanity? The bankers, right? Well, bullet point number 3, the captives were released with a Jubilee at Jericho. I believe the Battle of Jericho as this is an eternal war. It's a spiritual and monetary release of debt slaves. It goes on over and over and over. And what would truly glorify God, right? What would truly, at the Battle of Jericho, if there was a genocide, would that truly glorify God? Or if it was a Jubilee? I think that's plain to see. What would glorify God, that if it was a physical struggle or if it was a spiritual struggle? If God's emancipated children showed other of his children, the people inside of Jericho were created by the same God. You know, like I was saying before, if right now, under this sort of mindset, right now, God could come and strike me down and my child and kill my son who's innocent. I'm guilty. I'm cognizant of this, but my son is not. So anyway, moving on, number 3, the Israelites were on a spiritual offensive against Mammon. They were a blessing to all nations because they went through, in my beliefs, they went through all Canaan land, and they used the Ark of the Covenant to release. It was like a publicity stunt to show, hey, here's the good news. The good news is from the Old Testament. When Jesus proclaimed the good news in Luke 4:18, he was reading from the Old Testament. So today, where's the Ark of the Covenant? The devil's deception is that it's all about this thing that you have to find. It has to be dug up. We can't find it. Well, I'm saying there's not just one, and it's not a dusty old relic. It's basically this. It's a radio transmitter to God. They actually say that quote in the what's the name of the movie? The Raiders of the Lost Ark. They say the one doctor guy, the archaeologist who's looking for it, but working for the Nazis, he goes to Harrison Ford's character, Indiana Jones. He goes, "Don't you understand what the Ark of the Covenant is? It's a radio transmitter to God." And it is. And I'm going to get into that in a second because it gets a little controversial, but I love me some controversy. So the Ark of the Covenant, it's the container of law. It's undefeated in spiritual warfare, and it also has ascension tools in it. These ascension tools are psychedelics. You can look into Hebrews 9:4, and it says there's a jar holding manna. Well, manna is mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms, as my belief says. And I know multiple people who have had the greatest spiritual moments in their life where they went from being like myself, where I used to be Babylon creates psychopaths. I was a psychopath. I believed in violence and taxes and wars and usury. Like, I didn't know nothing about God. I was an agnostic psychopath. And bullet point number 2, holy anointing oil is what cured me. Cannabis healed my soul. It casted out demons. And here's bullet point number 3, which is another controversy: acacia wood. The Ark of the Covenant is made with acacia wood. Well, acacia is also a source for DMT. DMT is a naturally growing chemical in your body that you actually helps you to experience vivid dreams. It's also called the God particle. And the God particle is a chemical that actually made a video of Adam Kokesh using it. And it's an ascension tool. It's a psychedelic where you go see creation. You can ask one, like, think of it this way. It's like a 5-minute trip into the heavens. And you have, I kind of go, you ask, I've done it twice. And each time I went, I had one question and God answered me. And every time God tells me, he says, go bigger and take responsibility, take personal responsibility. And you fix that problem yourself, son. Fix it yourself. And one time was literally helping Robin through alcoholism. And we cured her addiction to alcoholism using DMT because God told me to do the same thing for her. Well, this is all part of the Ark of the Covenant, all 3 of those things. The Israelites, let's look at the Israelites again. Going back, the ancient Israelites, they lived outdoors. They were Rastafarian hippie types. They were using psychedelics. They were nonviolent. They were one love revolutionaries then and now. The people who resonate with this message that we're proclaiming, this good news, right now, Brett Jones, he's working with a tribe of what we would call like hippie types or tribal people. They don't necessarily like the Bible, but they love tribalism. And they have festivals, and they use cannabis. they use DMT, and they use mushrooms, and they are some of the greatest revolutionaries on planet Earth. They have events. They're doing some of the things that we're talking about, and they're about to launch a local currency with the help of Brett Jones called, oh my gosh, Star Tribe Hours. And Star Tribe, they are one of the tribes of Israel, but they don't know it because their identity has been stolen. And here's a great quote by St. Augustine. The Old Testament is the New Testament revealed, and the New Testament is the Old Testament concealed. What that means is it's good for me, and this is really important, like just, think of it this way. Think of, some people that will hear the story of Jesus, and they only have ever been taught by their Babylonian church about Jesus turning the moneylenders' tables over. And because they've only been taught by Babylonian preachers who are scribes and Pharisees, they don't know anything about the Old Testament. And they don't know why Jesus did it. They don't know what usury is. They don't know that buying and selling on the Sabbath is forbidden by the Old Testament. They don't know that there is usury going on in the temple. They don't know that Jesus proclaimed Jubilee. They don't know that Jesus was enforcing the Old Testament. But when you do know that, when you know the Old Testament, now you know the motivation for Jesus, and you're going, you know what he's doing? He's just teaching us what we're supposed to do, right? Jesus is just like me. He's the man. He was doing what we would do if we weren't afraid, right? If we were not afraid to totally get down with the devil, that's what we would be doing, exactly what Jesus did. He was fearless. He's my Messiah. Alternatively, it's important to take the New Testament and apply it to the Old Testament. And that will reveal some things too. Like the one, like Jesus's message of love that I believe, he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. Well, if Joshua was living by the sword, he would die by the sword. That was the same then during the time of Jericho. It was the same during Jesus's time, and it's the same today. It's an eternal message. So I just see a conflict. There's a conflict in thinking. I believe the Word of God is eternal, and it places a splinter in. So let's, just as a mental exercise, what would happen if we took Jesus, if Jesus replaced Joshua at the Battle of Jericho? Well, think of this contradiction. Think of Joshua's dress. Joshua had the sword and the armor and the helmet because he was going to kill some people. He was going to impose God's law with force. Like, if you weren't going to convert, he was going to kill you. And he was fearless. Like, I give him that. And, he was obeying what was written, he was disobeying, thou shalt not kill. But if you take, the book of Joshua at its face, then he was listening to God to go up and kill everybody. Well, think of Jesus's dress and his being. Jesus says, he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. Jesus needs no weapons other than the Word of God. And by the way, that's the only weapon that we need to beat Mystery Babylon. Only the Word of God. Jesus was fearless and compassionate. Alternatively, let's take Joshua, and we're doing that thing. We're doing what Augustine said. Let's plug an Old Testament character into the New Testament. Well, think of Joshua as Jesus. Well, I could see, obviously Joshua, he would go into a synagogue and he would proclaim Jubilee as Jesus did in Luke 4:19. He would have the stones to flip the moneylenders' tables. He would proclaim the woes to the scribes and the Pharisees. Joshua would be willing to be crucified. I respect Joshua. This isn't on Joshua. I love Joshua and Moses. Like, I love the prophets. And now think of Jesus as Joshua. He would serve God only. You know, we're taking Jesus now, and we're taking him back into the conquest of Palestine. Well, let's change the wording. Not a conquest, but the release of Palestine, the release of the promised land. Because we don't, you know, think of it today. We're not going to have a conquest of Babylon. We're going to release debt slaves that are in Babylonian captivity. We're not going to, you know, do anything at the point of a knife or a point of a spear or a point of a gun. So yeah, that's what Jesus would do. He would, bullet point number 2, Jesus would lead the Israelites to the promised land. Jesus would follow the Torah. Jesus would release captives. So here's section number 3. This is our future battle of Jericho, because this is what really matters. This is really why this really matters. Not to have some squabble over the Bible, because people can do that forever. In the future, there's no way that I would want to, if anybody starts saying to me right now that, hey, you know, God's talking to me and he's telling me that we're gonna do 7 laps around the Federal Reserve office in Denver. We're gonna carry the Ark of the Covenant, because right now I'm down. I'm into it. And then the walls are gonna dissolve, and once they dissolve, we're gonna go inside and we're gonna kill all the bankers inside. I'm like, no. As I was into all of it, but as soon as you say kill, I'm not in. So this is what we will do. So I think of the first U.S. county as that's the Exodus, right? So you know, just using this narrative right now. So let's say we emancipated Breckenridge, and that was the Exodus. That was the first group of people. You had the 144,000 people worldwide. Then you started an international money system that was also incorporated into the Summit County currency system. And I'm not saying this is an absolute that it's going to be Summit County, but that's certainly where the seeds have been planted the longest. But let's say it's in Breckenridge. Now, those seeds come to fruition, and they say, hey, we're down with it. Now, with the help of the international system, because you can't do it by yourself, you need the local people. Long story short, you have the Jubilee, and you have one place on planet Earth, one place where the debt slaves have been released. The Jubilee sheriff helped out. You got all of the international activists calling the local politicians to accept mountain hours for currency. This is all described in the Officer of Peace video, and particularly in the 144K manifesto. Now, after you have that one county done, well, now you want to go on the offensive and you want to emancipate more counties, right? Well, now, because we did it in one county, just like the book of Exodus, right? You did it for the Israelites. Now you want to do it for other people. That's what God wants. God wants us to proclaim the good news. It's not just for us. The Torah isn't just for us Israelites. It's for us to go around and spread the good news, to convert people, so that to let them be free. And as Henry was talking, and so that the glory of the Lord spreads across, you know, like water, the sea across the planet. So getting back to the bullet points, you have the Jubilee ceremony. Like we can do this exact ceremony where it's 7 days. And on the 7th day, you have the Ark of the Covenant, and you have this huge publicity stunt. Do it just like that. And people are going, what are you doing? They're doing what they were doing at the Battle of Jericho. They're doing it this week. Wouldn't you get pretty excited? Stone walls of all of the debt slaves. Like, what bigger drama could there be? And wouldn't you prefer doing that rather than having a violent conflict? This is our Jubilee. This is the good news. So now think of what would happen if we started doing this. Like, just imagine in your community, right? Well, let's use Denver as a community. We started doing this around the Federal Reserve building, for instance, and there's lots of traffic in Denver around the Federal Reserve. It's right in downtown, and we started carrying the Ark of the Covenant around, and we just had a hippie parade. Well, when we're having this hippie parade of we're like, literally, it's a bunch of hippies. We're gonna look like Jesus. We'll be sandals and barefoot and carrying the Ark of the Covenant. And literally, we actually when we did this in Denver, we actually took manna before we started, and we're singing songs, and we're just as happy as can be. That's the whole. The revolution is a song. It's not a weapon. It's not a physical weapon. What would the lies that Babylon would say against us inside the walls of the Federal Reserve office? Because the private security are going to look out, and they're going to start at, what are these guys doing? Well, their higher ups. It's going to be emergency time. They're going to look to their higher ups, going, well, is this a threat? Is this violence? Are we to be afraid? And then it's going to be on the news. And what is Babylon going to say about us Israelites? They're going to say that we're violent. They might pull off false flags in order to demonize us. And maybe light a dumpster on fire or break some windows. They're going to try to infiltrate us with some demons. They're going to use fear and division and hate in order to make us appear to be violent, even though we're stoners and we're happy. We don't want to fight anybody. They're going to portray us as being anti-Semitic little Hitlers, right? They're going to dig up some stuff about, Wayne said that these Jewish fables and all this kind of stuff. And they're going to say, oh, he's a Holocaust denier. Like that. You can tell exactly what they're going to do. But in the meantime, all we're trying to do is live out the law of Moses, right? We're trying to live it out. We're trying to live out the Torah. Well, what's the first thing that they're going to say? Well, by living out the Torah, they're trying to do the same thing they did at Jericho. Well, at Jericho, they came inside and they started killing people. You see how this belief that Jericho plays into the hands of the deceivers? Operation Jericho, right? This is a national plan. It's a statewide plan for Colorado. It's a national plan. It's a regional plan. Every U.S. county, bullet point number 2, a separate independent hour money system to hire the enforcers. Bullet point number 3, it's an hour money system that has a fixed unit value, like an inch. And an inch is an inch, the same worldwide, just like an hour is an hour, the same worldwide. You can trade these internationally. Bullet point number 4, the Ark of the Covenant. We'll be carrying the Ark of the Covenant. We'll just keep doing the same thing over and over again, because it's a replicating thing that God's teaching. Just do it over and over. We'll have 7 priests with 7 ram's horn. Every county will have a Jubilee sheriff. Now, in the Officer of Peace music video, there was a victory without fighting. It was a win-win agreement. Here's the revelation. We're all debt slaves, including the enforcers, including the police and military. They are us. We are them. We have to stop fighting them. We have to stop letting the bankers hire them, that they sell their souls, so that they fight their own people. They're our fellow Israelites. So let's not fight the enforcers. Let's hire them. Let's offer them a better deal. Let's offer them debt forgiveness. Let's offer them a free house. Now, a big role in all of this is the Jubilee sheriff, because the Jubilee sheriff is the one who's going to deliver 100% debt forgiveness. The Jubilee sheriff is paid with our money. The Jubilee sheriff refuses to enforce tax and mortgage liens. And by the way, Sherry Honkala, who's on the right, this is the street cred that she's got. I like to prop up people on the left and the right. Sherry Honkala, she was running for the sheriff. She's a homeless person from time to time. And she's a real advocate for the homeless. Anyway, she ran for sheriff in Philadelphia under the platform that she was going to block all foreclosures. She's a legitimate Jubilee sheriff. She's down for this. She was in the Officer of Peace music video. That music video, I'm going to retitle it to The Battle of Jericho 2. Now, bullet point number 4, the Jubilee sheriff kicks out the IRS. He kicks out the FDA. He kicks out the FBI and the DEA. The Jubilee sheriff is God's law enforcement. The Jubilee sheriff, think about this. Moses, Joshua, and Jesus were Jubilee sheriffs, right? That's what they were doing. They were just Moses came to enforce the law of Moses, or the Torah, the law of the Lord, right? Joshua was enforcing the law of Moses. Jesus was enforcing the law of Moses. Now, to enforce the law of Moses, we don't need any votes. We don't need a majority. We don't need violence. And stone walls get dissolved. So our future battle of Jericho, it's a song. Look at that image on the right. Now this Jericho, I want to bring my son to this battle. I want my son to see this battle. I want my son to lead this battle. I want him to smile and bless it with his soul because it's beautiful. I want to bring my dog and my wife, right? Because that's what we did when we did this. When we took the Ark of the Covenant around, we did a separate video. I'll play this video sometime. We actually took the Ark of the Covenant around the Federal Reserve Office in Denver. Well, we were singing songs, but I think one of the songs goes like, peace, unity, and liberty. We want our Jubilee. One love, liberty. We want our Jubilee. Like we're just making songs up as like little children, God's children. Well, bullet point number 1, Jubilee, the future battle of Jericho is a song. It's to remove fear and division. It's to unify all humanity. It's for the release of the captives that are inside the walls and on the outside of the walls, because the reality is there are no walls of Jericho. That's the revelation. So here's the review. Right on time was, yeah, we're right on time. The official story of the Battle of Jericho. The official story of the Battle of Jericho is very similar to the tyrannic state of Israel coming in and stealing it from the people. Some of those people, the Palestinians, are Christians. They're Israelites. Though that's what the state of Israel did. They came and they're stealing it at the point of a gun. I don't think that's God's way. So bullet point number 2 of the review, I wanted to demonstrate the devil had the means, the motive, and the opportunity to corrupt the Jericho story. And I explained that identity theft and false flags create war by deception. Look at the world right now. There's been absolutely nothing that the devil was unwilling to do, right? To destroy. Robin calls these people the baby rapers. They are evil. They live and trade off of men's soul. They get off on our misery. Would these people that hate us so much, would they corrupt the Bible? I think they would. Finally, bullet point number 3, prepare ye the way of the Lord, right? Prepare for a future nonviolent battle of Jericho. That has the qualities of, it's a rapid offensive action plan with each U.S. county. Number 1, a Jubilee sheriff. Number 2, an independent our money system. Number 3, that mean, when I say independent our money system, that means the intention is that every county will be self-sufficient for every need that they have to support life. That means independent food, water, energy, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They are 100% independent. Number 3, Ark of the Covenant. no, I'm saying every county is going to have 7 priests with 7 ram's horns. We're going to have this publicity stunt. Number 6, the publicity stunt is the 7 days with the 7 ram's horn. And on the 7th day, we're going to yell and say, hey, you know what? We're going to snap our fingers because all of our debts are forgiven. And how can we have confidence in saying it? Because our debts are forgiven right now. Right now, they're forgiven. God died for our debts. Jesus died for our debts. Number 6, we're going to sell a political platform, right? When we're doing the laps, people are going to, well, what's this all about? And we're going to sell them something. We're going to sell them an idea. Here's the idea. All debt forgiven. Everybody gets a free land inheritance. Everybody can self-issue money in the vocation of their passion. Right? Think of it. You don't have to sell your soul to work. You can work in the vocation of your passion. And you're going to work in a 15 to 20 week work year, right? You don't have to sweat money anymore. Like money is, you won't think about money. It's going to be a non-issue. We'll have free healthcare, free education. We'll have no inflation because an hour is always an hour. We'll have a voluntary society where we're going to remove all these coercive taxes. This is a big win, man. This is a big promise, and God delivers his promise. Number 7, Babylon will fall without our commercial energy, and thus the kingdom is established. And that is the very meaning of repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Finally, I'm going to show the video once again. Operation Jericho done, and we'll get some comments from Henry. I'll go into the chat. Henry, you're on camera. If you had any questions, I'll cue up the video.
Yeah, you know, you're right that there's a lot of corruption of the Bible. I mean, in fact, I just, I came across today, yesterday or today, I was reading in one of Paul's letters and found I'll have to write it down, but I found a deliberate hiding of his message in the translation. You know, he was talking about the economy of God, and there's nothing in the, when you read it in the English, there's nothing mentioned. It's kind of like some fantasy spiritual stuff. And, you know, he's talking about economics. And in Jeremiah 8, verse 8, it says, how can you say we are wise and the law of the Lord is with us? Look, the false pen of the scribe certainly works falsehood. That's Jeremiah 8:8. So right there, it was written that, and you know that the more you dig into it, the more into the Bible, the deeper you study, you become aware that there were warring factions as to what was to be included in the Bible, and you can start to see the two themes. You can start to see the Pharisee, the money lenders themes on the one hand, and the true Israelite, the Jubilee theme on the other, you know. And there's some other people who have pointed this out to me. Not that I can get into a bunch of detail right now about it. I'm learning the deeper I dig into this, but you know, there are doctrines. There were doctrines that the early church held that around the year 400, when the church became taken over by the Roman Empire, where all the truth seekers were basically driven out of positions in the church, and the emperors decreed what was acceptable, and then they held church councils to decide what was acceptable interpretation and what was to be included in the New Testament, you know. So yeah, the Bible itself is a battlefield between the two factions.
Oh, I like that a lot. The Bible is a battlefield, and you know, just you know, talking about the you know, the official Battle of Jericho story, if you know, just right now there's a huge conflict over Muslims and ISIS and all that kind of thing, and I love Muslims, and the first thing what will happen is when you're talking to a Christian Zionist who just hate the Muslims, they hate them, like you can't even speak to them because they're so consumed with hate, and they'll always reference these different parts of the Quran that speak that profess violence, and all it does is, you know, all you need is a little bit of dirt to corrupt the water, you know what I mean? All it takes is one turd to corrupt a whole book, and the devil knows that, and the devil has always been the one who has the power to control distribution. Like you realize that so much when you write a book. Like Henry and I both have written books, and Brett Jones is on the call. Like you create a painting. If you're willing to sell your soul and write a book on behalf of Babylon to corrupt men's souls, the distributors will take it. Like if Henry and I committed ourselves to finding how ISIS was proclaimed or prophesied in the Old Testament, and it was warned about how ISIS was going to come and try to establish a caliphate and destroy the state of Israel and destroy Christianity, we would get published no problem, because the devil wants us to be killing each other, because the devil doesn't kill us himself. The devil tricks us into killing each other, and part of that is by corrupting our souls. And there's no better way to corrupt men's souls is to get us to believe that God wants us to kill. And when I seek God's face, I'm speaking to your soul, everyone. When I seek God's face, I see love and the Creator and my Son. That's what I just, it's so joyously innocent. And I just see that innocence in animals and all creation. When you look at nature, and all creation is crying for us to stop being so wicked and killing and hating and just become hippies, you know? And getting to that point, Brett Jones is promoting a new currency called Star Tribe Hours, and it's with a tribe in Colorado where it's a group of We Are Change people, and they call themselves, like, they have a group called Tribe Rise Up. Now, because they have been programmed in Babylon, a lot of them hate the Bible. They hate it. They hate the Israelites. Meanwhile, they're living more like true Israelites than most Christians do, if you follow me. Brett made that comment, and I wanted to repeat some of the things that Brett is saying in here, because it's really good. We're making a good point. You know, for a very long time, many of the people who were in the synagogues and the churches, they couldn't even read. They just had to sit and listen, and it was, you know, how easy is it to corrupt things when you can't check the work of the people teaching you? You know what I mean? You can't cross-reference it. They could just make up whatever they want and then corrupt the Bible, and they had control of all the printing presses. So, and Jesus was making a good point here. That's why Jesus spoke in parables, so that those who would corrupt things would not even comprehend what he was saying and see it as leaving it as gibberish. And thus, because the corrupt couldn't understand what Jesus was talking about, they wouldn't try to corrupt that verse. They would look for other things that, you know, I think about this all the time. When you go into the church and when they recite the Lord's Prayer, they almost always, I've never been in a church where they say, forgive us our debtors, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. They almost always say, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Well, that's a corruption of the bankers. You know what I mean? It's like, it's all over. You know, once I literally believe this is that, like, you guys ever see, you know, the Matrix movie? There comes a point where there's a line that goes, there's a big difference between knowing the path and walking the path. And I think the Bible gives us all of the instruction to know the path. But there comes a point where we have to walk the path. And to walk the path, there comes a point in the Matrix movie where they're always, Neo and Morpheus, they're always running. And there comes a point in that where Neo turns against the agents, and he goes, "You know what, baby? Let's have it out, because everything that you have, and Babylon, and think about it, everything that was coming at him from the agents was all Babylon. It was all artificial. It was all man-made. And he came to the Spirit of the Lord, even though that movie wasn't in a way, that movie is about the Bible. He came to the direct revelation of the Creator and says, you know what? I work for God, and the devil has nothing. I fear no man, and I feel nothing of the devil, because everything that the devil is created by man. And if I follow God's ways, there's nothing that you can do to me. I'm going to take up the cross, because if I do not do this, I'm already dead. And once you get 144,000 people like Henry Garman and Brett Jones and Corey, Daniel Kranicki, once you get those babies together, the deception of the movie Matrix isn't that there's one Neo. The deception is that there's going to be 144,000 of them. And when you get them together where they say, I do not want to use Babylon's money because it serves the devil who wants to kill me and my children and my son and my family, and he killed that group, killed my Creator and my Messiah, this ends now. Jubilee, let it be. And it's that beautiful. It's a song. It's a new song. It's a new way of thinking. And as soon as we have that Christ consciousness, or the Ark of the Covenant consciousness, or the Torah consciousness, whatever you want to call that, once we have that, game over. In that second, in that very second, imagine we had 144 people listening to this right now, and we just sing that song. We reword the song from the Beatles. In my time of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, whispering words of wisdom. Jubilee, Jubilee, let it be. And it's that simple. We don't have to do anything. You know what I mean? It's Jubilee right then. Immediately, it's just consciousness. So I went wordy on that. I want to follow up in the comments, Henry, if you can comment.
Yeah, it's a song. That's what Habakkuk was getting to at the end. He was talking about it's a song, time to take up instruments. So, yeah, it's I like what you said, Wayne. Very good. Like Brett said, now you're talking.
Now you're talking.
Yeah.
And that's like, and I when we do these presentations, they're very bookish and they're very dry. But what we're doing right now is we're laying the foundation. And I don't want it ever thought when I talk about Operation Jericho, I want hey, what are these guys doing? We have 15 episodes to explain what we're doing. We love humanity. We love all humanity. We have no intention of hurting anyone of any race, religion, or creed, or sexual orientation. We are sinful ourselves, and I want to fix my own sin. I want to repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand, so that we can have the kingdom and heal all humanity, heal it from this torture. We're undergoing warfare. We're being warred upon. And so I've queued up the video, and Brett had made a comment. We want to have on I want to finish my thought before I go to this, is that we've done a bunch of dry stuff, right? But what I want to do in the future and is literally, we want to bring different people who will do like spoken word and do like a rant. Like I would like to do like a 2-minute song or a poem, and we'd have like a poetry challenge. And you just make up poetry and using the Bible and using all of this. This is the meat. We've laid the meat down. Now let's have some fun. Let's make some songs up. Let's mock Babylon. Let's entertain one another, and let's make it really fun and more festive, and make, you know, live bands, because we've built the foundation, and let's make it really fun. Let's create the song, not just one songs, but 100 different songs, and just really go big. Brett Jones has a good comment. There's this one musician that we listen to who talks about a lot of this stuff. His name's Diesel Automatic. We can have him on, and he keeps saying, get big on him. Get big on him. Don't be afraid. Get big on him. Get big on him. And that's our call, is to get big on him. Henry, final comments?
Just remind me, I wrote a poem. I'm going to have to read it next time.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, is to make it more, we have to become the dominant entertainment, and we could create, literally, we can create this, and this can turn in, Jubilee TV can turn into more like of an American Idol, or a Star Search, or America's Got Talent, and we can make it really interesting. The difference is they do everything on Babylon's media. Their whole thing is designed to hide the Torah and the good news. Our whole show will be to reveal the good news. So I think that would be really fun, to make it really interesting. To, like, we want to become the a host to people who get all this, because we're leading through inspiration, and we want to be the host and have an outlet to be a distribution network for higher consciousness. What do you think of that, Henry?
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good.
All right, well, Henry, we're gonna have to have you sing. We're gonna have, like, we might get some dancing going. Like, I'm for real. Like, I'm gonna make a vow on this show in the coming new year. I will be dancing. Robin will be dancing. I'm gonna have Christian dancing. We will make this. This is going to be a Jubilee. And getting to, I got misdirected there. Brett Jones is promoting a new currency called Star Tribe Hours with Elias Clay, who is a musician, that she talks about Babylon in a whole bunch of her songs. She's a one love hippie love revolution, a tribalist, getting back to, you know, think about this whole idea of the indigenous from the movie Avatar. We are the indigenous, and that's what we want, local self-sufficiency. Well, we want to bring these artists on. Corey was just saying, I want to hear Henry sing.
Yeah, I can sing pretty good when I'm motivated.
So, like, and I really mean that. I don't want it to be so dry, but it was a necessary part, because from here on, everybody will know what we're about. We're about one love, and I don't even believe that the violence in parts of the Old Testament, I don't believe it. I think it was corrupted at some point. So I just wanted to make my strongest case to present that. And if you believe that it was, I still love you, brother. It doesn't matter, because our future revolution, there will be no violence in the future battle of Jericho, because it only plays into the devil's hand. Brett has a comment here. He's got a link that's being broadcast for Henry's book, Run with the Vision. And I wanted to finally show the video, Operation Jericho. What's funny is that you can't even buy this right now, because I haven't updated like a link that's inside WordPress. I'm just so I'm not money driven, and I don't care. It's so hard when you lose interest in money. I literally, like I said, I got my electric shut off today. How embarrassing is that, man? For lack of payment. And by the way, at the time I only had like $5 in my checking account. Oh my God. I if that kind of thing happened to me about 10 years ago, I would lose my mind and be fighting with everybody I knew and be embarrassed. I wouldn't even tell you. I'd be so embarrassed. Now I don't give a shit. So there you have it, Henry. Had you seen that promo video before?
No.
What do you think?
I'll have to check it out. When are you going to have it up for sale?
I'll just send it to you. I haven't. I made it an audio book because I think it's really important to make it as easy to digest for people as possible. And I actually hired a guy off of Fiverr to make it so that you can listen. I kind of, you know, it's so nice for me when I get an audiobook because then I could just listen to it and I don't have to read it, and that makes it I can work and do other things. So anyway, I wanted to make it in that form, and I will send it to you as soon as possible. And while I was thinking of something, next week is the fake holiday of Christmas.
Yes.
I think it's a week away, and I think we should scratch for that. And but I would like to meet for New Year or Eve. I think that could be like our little Jubilee party.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And I'm teasing right now. I'm gonna write up a script of how we could have the Jubilee. You know, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just going to show just an idea for dates and the monetization. I want to show the monetization. You know, I was describing in there, you know, when we do this revolution, we can actually pay ourselves in the currency, and that could be our income as we're emancipating people and performing Operation Jericho. You can pay people to do that. That's what's so powerful about this. We can become the dominant money system, or even the side. As soon as we can survive off of our own money, our own self-issued money, that allows us to pay ourselves, and we can become professional love revolutionaries. And we should. We need to become professional teachers. We have to open schools. We have to be full-time with this teaching, so that it becomes more professional and more well-known. What do you think of the idea of getting paid an hour money, Henry?
Oh, I like the idea. I think we can, well, I have an idea. I have a Jubilee shares is what I'm working on. That's what I call it. I registered that domain, jubileeshares.com.
Nice.
And I think I have a concept. I just, on how we could actually pay people, and they can actually earn some Federal Reserve notes at the same time as they're investing in our money. So they can get paid to finance. Believe it or not, they can actually. It can be self-paying. It can be self-financing.
Exactly.
I'm looking at a number of sites they call, you know, that have different systems of revenue sharing. Basically, what they do is they have profit sharing. So they sell a service, and so it would be like a membership site in which we would have training, and then we would also have the ability, kind of like how people can earn air miles, that sort of thing. They can earn our money for advertising, for actually promoting their passion, and yeah, it can work. You know, there's some sites that are doing this. We just have to get the proper mix, and it'll work. So I'm working on that. I'm drafting it out. Sort of the concept. I'll be sharing that with you soon.
Yeah, I had in the 144K manifesto, there is a section in there for Jubilee shares, and basically distinguishing between Jubilee shares as a form of compensation and our money. The difference being is that, think of it right now, there's just kind of a review, is what we're doing is we're monetizing an idea. And that happens. That's what entrepreneurs do all the time. They monetize ideas, like a computer, Apple computer, Steve Jobs and all that. That was the monetization of an idea. And we can come up with a pitch where we can present this to people. And I think that's one of our most important next things that we do is to have a pitch, to pitch this solely on, as a financial investment, or that sort of, or a time investment. And there's a way that it can be distributed or maximized through direct sales, almost like a multi-level marketing kind of thing. So, but to think about this is that at one point, I made the analogy in one of our earliest shows, is at one point, the story of Forrest Gump was only an idea. It didn't exist. Then it became a book, then it became a movie, and then it became a restaurant chain, right? Well, they monetized an idea. Well, in the same way, the Bitcoin, at one point, Bitcoin was just an idea, and they monetized it, and all of a sudden it went up to like $1,000 or something or other. The thing is, when Bitcoin went from $0 to $1,000, it didn't save anybody's life, right? Well, the idea that we're creating, think of the Forrest Gump story, it's just a nice story, right? It was entertaining. Or Bitcoin, it was, it allowed you to have a money system was outside the control of the governments. Well, with our money, we are going to take a money system that's outside the control of the banks. There's no monopoly over the money system at all. Anybody can issue it. The thing is, the value of the money never itself increases. It's like an inch. You can't speculate on it. Alternatively, if we issue Jubilee shares to people, or we will, for their activism, it will I think we should give a Jubilee. I think we should give 2 Jubilee shares to every person on the planet, one of which they cannot sell because that's their inheritance. Their other one they can speculate with, and the way they get that Jubilee share is they just have to, listen. They have to agree to like the non-aggression principle and basically agree that they want to join the Exodus. You know what I mean? They just agree to it. And then they get a Jubilee share. And then that one they can speculate on in the same way that Bitcoin is speculative. And the more that we believe in it, like the mustard seed, the more that we focus on this, the more people appear on Jubilee TV, the more episodes of Jubilee TV, the more the production value, the more people will go, hey, these guys got something here. And the more the idea manifests itself in the real world, those Jubilee shares will gain value, just like Bitcoin did. And eventually, we can actually have a restaurant. We can have a Jubilee TV where we have a live audience, like in a studio, and they'll actually be getting a share of the story of the Jubilee. And that's what it is. The idea is this story. And then when we make a movie out of it, they can get a monetary consideration, because then the shares will go up in value, because now you have a movie, and this will be the only movie that exists talking about how humanity gets its act together, and how the Israelites are the Christians and the tribe of Judah are the Jews. And we both return to the Torah. This is the greatest story ever told. And if it's the greatest story ever told, it should be the greatest financial windfall that ever is created. It creates a voluntary society. How much would it be worth just to live in a society like this? You know what I mean? I think this is a really good idea for us to focus on. I have you back on, Henry. What do you think of those ideas?
Yeah, I agree. Good.
Yeah. What do you think of the idea of like 2 shares, like 1 share you just get and you can't sell it, but then you get a second share just for joining the Exodus? You don't have to do anything. You just join the Exodus. You agree to the 144K manifesto that you want to participate. You'll accept our money. You're willing to earn it and accept it. I think once we incentivize the joining of this financially, we'll get even more people to consider it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's along the same lines that I was thinking, like having incentives, having rewards for being involved, actually earning as it goes, you know, as you get involved, you earn and you benefit.
Yeah. You're just, it's monetizing an idea. What's interesting is here in Tampa, I'm in Tampa, and I was in a fraternity, and one of my fraternity brothers was involved in doing a lot of he has like the software for multi-level marketing. So so if let's say I had a new potion that is good for making hair grow back or whatever, a new potion for skincare or whatever, I would go to him and I would buy that, and then I would go recruit. So if if I was creating a multi-level marketing, you would go to him. So he's kind of an expert at monetizing ideas and then using software. So I'm gonna see if he's a Christian and how much of a revolutionary he is. And he lives right in Tampa. So I'm these are kind of the next things that I want to do, and start using all of the assets and people that I do. And by creating a pitch that isn't about the Bible and all that kind of stuff, where it's a pitch where it's just about the money, it'll be just like selling Bitcoin. You know what I mean? But it has it has such a better story than Bitcoin, you know, because it's so much of a grander idea. So that's really it for tonight. Any final comments, Henry?
No, we're on the same page. I have some, I'm aware of some different software. I'll send you the links. So I'll write up an analysis of what I've come across so far, and then we can compare notes. But yeah, we're on the same page. So yeah, next show we'll start off the new year with a bang, and I'm gonna have some poetry, and maybe I'll even sing. I'll see. I've got 2 weeks to prepare. So
let's
I was thinking today. I was thinking today when I was working on my presentation. I mean, I have all these soundtracks, very dramatic music soundtracks, and I'm starting to make a few videos. I'm going to turn Habakkuk into a whole bunch of videos, okay, short and long. But I was thinking, when I do my presentation, how could I have a soundtrack, you know, behind me as I'm talking, so that I'm not just talking, but more dramatic value. So I'll have to look into that too, you know.
All right, I'm writing this on the comments. I like it. I'm writing in the comments around the challenge to everyone who's listening, and Henry Garman and myself. We're going to make a 2-minute poem or a song, just 2 minutes, kind of just describe the problem and state the solution to all the world's problems. Describe the problem. And you think 2 minutes is good, or should we go 3?
2 minutes to start out with.
And I think this will be like, you can make it a rant. You know how it could just be like an angry rant, and like just theater, like with just however you want to create it. It could be a poem. It could just be a rant, and we can all get big on them. And that's the challenge. So here's my challenge: everyone here make a 2-minute video, and if you want to present, so anybody, the listeners, Brett, Corey, Daniel, you have to get a Gmail account, and you also need to have Google Chrome. So 2 minutes, describe the problem and describe the solution. And Brett saying 2 minutes sounds good to him. I think this will be fun. Like and like I said, eventually, just imagine we had this, and we had the technology of like American Idol or one of those things. We could have people vote on it for the best 2-minute video, And the more people are entertained by this, we get more eyeballs, and the more people care, and it'll be fun, because the more everybody gets included in the creation of this, the more they'll participate. And we're literally living the song of the revolution. Brett Jones writing a poem this weekend. Here we go. We're getting excited.
Good.
All right, Henry, final comments. I'm going to sign off.
Yeah, I've already got a poem written, so I'm gonna, I don't know, maybe I'll rap it or rant it or something, add a soundtrack to it, sing it, who knows.
And by the way, you can pre-record it if you want, because it gets tricky adding music if it's not pre-recorded. You can do that. I think if you share your screen and you play music at the same time, I think there's a way you can do that. So that's really it. That's all we got for tonight. Thank you, Henry, for your presentation and the time to get that all together. And like I said before, nobody, who else talks about the book of Habakkuk other than Henry Garman? Henry Garman's a world-leading jubilist on Jubilee TV. This is the point of the spear right here, this consciousness. Come to Jubilee TV, bring the tribes here. We are going to take the ball, like I'm making a sports analogy. We're going to take the ball and put it over the goal line. We are dedicated to bringing down Babylon, rising the people, and the fall of the machines. I wanted to thank you, Daniel, and Brett Jones, and Corey, and I can't read the other name there. So thank you guys for listening to these presentations. Please share these ideas that you like with other fellow Jubilists, and share the good news. The good news is the Torah. The good news is the Jubilee. The good news is that we are going to win, and we can do it. I'm not kidding around. We could do it next year. We could have the Exodus next year, just in time for Passover. Why isn't that that's why God gave us these rehearsals? That's why the fall, the Feast of the Trumpets, Day of Atonement, we can do that. That's why Christmas takes us off track, because it doesn't attach us to our emancipation. The Passover attaches us to the Exodus. So let's get ready. Let's get excited. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. Good night. Good night, everybody.